50 days and counting, President Trump gives Vladimir Putin a deadline for a peace deal with plans to further arm Ukraine in the meantime. Plus, beg your pardon? Former President Joe Biden admits he didn't know the details of every person he pardoned. And big changes may be coming to your student loans. They don't sound great. We've got all the details you need to know. Those stories and more today, Tuesday, July 15th. I'm Caitlin Becker, and this is the New York Postcast. The Department of Education is another step closer to being a thing of the past, thanks to another Supreme Court win for President Trump. The highest court in the land says that the White House can go through with a plan to lay off more than 1,300 Education Department employees as part of the administration's quest to dismantle the agency. Now, the ruling, like many this SCOTUS term, was decided along ideological lines, with the 3 liberal justices dissenting. The conservative wing of the court lifted a previous ruling by a Boston federal judge blocking the firings and ordering those who had already been dismissed to be rehired. The judge's rationale here was that these mass layoffs required congressional approval, and Justice Sonia Sotomayor seemed to agree, writing in the dissent, quote, "The majority is either willfully blind to the implications of its ruling or naive, but either way, the threat to our Constitution's separation of powers is grave." On the other hand, Secretary of Education Linda McMahon applauded the decision, saying in a statement, quote, "The Supreme Court again confirmed the obvious. The President of the United States, as the head of the executive branch, has the ultimate authority to make decisions about staffing levels, administrative organization, and day-to-day operations of federal agencies." Now, while we are on the topic of education, let's talk student loans. It should come as no surprise that at over 900 pages, President Trump's big, beautiful bill had plenty of surprises buried within the lines. And a little more than a week after it passed, we're starting to dig them up. If you weren't aware, this is a thing in Congress on both sides of the aisle, hiding policy changes in a larger bill by shoehorning them in at the last minute. Now, this massive bill is reversing Biden-era changes to government-backed student loans, setting caps to how much certain students can borrow. And some experts are concerned that the move will send borrowers looking for private loans instead. Now, these are typically more expensive and could force cash-strapped students to drop out or skip college altogether. In addition to the caps, this bill could make repaying loans more difficult. Right now, borrowers can defer payments if they lose their jobs or earn less than the minimum wage. But that safety net is going to be eliminated in July of 2027. And as it stands now, there are 7 different options to repay loans, offering a wide range of flexibility. Starting in 2028, though, those options will be cut down to 2, a fixed rate plan and one based on a percentage of income. And now to the previous presidential administration. In a bombshell new interview, former President Joe Biden revealed that he didn't approve every individual name that he pardoned or whose sentence he commuted at the end of his term. Biden told the New York Times that his chief of staff at the time, Jeff Zients, approved the use of the autopen to sign thousands of commutations. This was back in December of 2024 and January of 2025. Near the end of last year, Biden pardoned nearly 40 people for nonviolent crimes and commuted the sentences of 1,500 others who had been transferred out of prison and into home confinement during the pandemic. And then just days before leaving office, he commuted the sentences of 2,500 federal inmates who were convicted of drug offenses related to crack cocaine. According to the report, while the president didn't approve each and every offender individually, he did approve the exact parameters that would qualify someone to get on that list. And Biden insisted that he personally approved every high-profile pardon. The ex-president lashed out at members of the GOP who were suggesting his use of autopen was meant to hide his mental decline. And of his Republican adversaries, he said, quote, "The best thing they can do is to try to change the focus and focus on something else." Now to our big story, arming Ukraine. President Trump announced Monday that the U.S. will be sending billions of dollars in weapons to Ukraine. And when asked if they would be defensive weapons or offensive ones, he replied, everything. Now, how they get there is a little convoluted. The weapons will technically be sold by the United States to NATO, who will then in turn transfer them to Ukraine. The president also threatened to enact 100% secondary sanctions against some of Russia's key trading partners. Now, it's a move aimed at both helping Ukraine in its fight to protect itself and push back Russian advances, while also enticing Vladimir Putin back to the negotiating table to find a lasting peace. The president also started the clock on a 50-day deadline to come to such a deal.
And I'm disappointed in President Putin because I thought we would have had a deal 2 months ago, but it doesn't seem to get there. So based on that, we're going to be doing secondary tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. It's very simple. And they'll be at 100%. And that's the way it is.
For more on all this, I'm joined now by the Post's Caitlin Dornbos, who is in Kyiv right now. Caitlin, tell me a bit about the weapons included in this new shipment. What kind of impact might they have?
Yeah, there is a lot still unknown about what weapons they're actually going to send to Ukraine. But what we do know is that there will be more Patriot missile batteries that will be sent to Ukraine. These are really key to defending Ukraine from air attacks. Those are used to counter everything from missiles and glide bombs all the way into the drones that you're seeing happening in huge amounts coming from Russia. Just within the past week, we have seen all-time highs of more than 700 drones coming into Ukraine from Russia. So these Patriot missile batteries will be really key to protecting the skies above Ukraine. As far as additional weapons, there could be anything. I think the president is still assessing what really could be sent. And we could see anything from more defensive missiles to even offensive weapons that could be used to really push back Russian troops. But again, that decision has not yet been made.
So President Trump also announced these secondary 100% tariffs. Can you explain to me how those would work?
Yeah, so the secondary tariffs, they target the companies that are giving Russia the money. These are, not companies, but rather they're usually countries that are purchasing oil from Russia, evading sanctions, trying to get away with feeding Russia's war machine, because Russia's sale of oil is how it's funding its war. So the top purchasers of this oil, too, are countries that are like our adversaries, such as China and India. China and India together make up about 70% of the purchases from Russian oil markets. So as far as hurting allies, we wouldn't necessarily be hurting allies. We would be hurting people in countries like China. So targeting the source of the money rather than just Russia itself is really key and very smart and strategic for the United States to do.
Yeah, cutting off that pipeline of money. Now, speaking of Russia, Caitlin, what's Russia's reaction? Do you think this is going to get them to the negotiating table?
I don't think, frankly, we have seen enough yet come from the administration. I think that we won't have a good idea yet as to whether Russia will be willing to come to the table, because all the way throughout this war, and certainly within the last 6 months, Russia has been playing the game of delaying these any kind of end to the war. They haven't shown any real interest in ending the war. They want to continue its talks with the United States. And so now the president has given Russia 50 days to come up with a peace deal and end its war. I expect that we will see those 50 days end without a deal. The president seems optimistic that they will come through with a deal. And I guess we'll just have to stay tuned to see what's going to happen. I'm really interested tonight from Kyiv to see what the reaction will be as far as missiles and drones sent from Russia in the wake of this announcement by the president, which was strong and decisive, certainly, by sending the military aid. But the sanctions package weren't necessarily as strong and as feared as, say, the sanctions bill that is in Congress right now that would have issued a 500% secondary tariff on countries that were purchasing Russian oil, and that would have happened immediately. So I think what's really key here is that 50-day time period. Will Russia actually heed this time warning? I think we'll have to see.
50 days. We're, of course, going to keep our eye on it. Stay safe out there, Caitlin, from Kyiv in the Ukraine. Thank you so much for joining us. And now from our friends at Page Six, Baby One More Time. Britney Spears says she's a mom again. The legendary Miss Spears made the surprising pronouncement in a classically bizarre Britney Instagram post, claiming that she's adopted a, quote, beautiful baby girl named Lennon London Spears. The social media caption was kinda all over the place. The pop star said that she's had 3 hours of her workout video footage stolen, that Lennon was wearing a dress that says "I'm new here," and that she's moving to Italy. It was all followed by 3 winking emojis. So is this like that game you play on the first day of freshman orientation, 2 truths and a lie? Because if it is, you got me, Britney. I have no clue. For what it's worth, sources told TMZ that, oops, she did not do it again, and that there is, in fact, no Lennon London Spears. And finally today, one of the only perks of working in an office are free office snacks. Those tiny bags of chips and the occasional granola bar that you don't have to pay for can get a person through. Well, they may be a thing of the past. As outlined in the recently passed Big Beautiful Law starting January 1st, 2026, companies will no longer get tax breaks for giving their employees things like snacks, coffee, or on-site meals. You didn't actually think your bosses were doing this out of the goodness of their own heart, did you? No, they all got to deduct that. Now, the Society for Human Resource Management says 44% of U.S. employers offer some sort of free food, and that number doubled in the past 10 years. Eliminating the deduction is expected to generate a whopping $32 billion for the government in new tax revenue by 2034, but at what cost are snacks? It is still too early to tell what most companies are going to do. Are they going to eat the cost? See what I did there? Or are they going to starve their workers? Now, I will let you in on a little secret. The New York Post has a 10 out of 10 office snack game. But for news and not snacks, check us out in print or online. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the most snackable podcast out there, the New York Postcast, wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Until tomorrow, I'll miss you.